So much of this legal action has to do with immigration, deportation, the border. I want to read something from our next guest, Congressman Adam Smith, speaking to that issue. He says this: there are a lot of people in this country, undocumented, who should be allowed to stay. They have been a vital part of our economy. They are vital parts of our community.
How many of you are sending your kids to college to go and work on them? Okay, well, guess who is working the farms? So that you can afford your food.
So that you can have food.
So that you can have food. Now, how many of you are looking to send your kids into hospitality after this college education so that they can go and make the beds at the hotels? How many of you are planning to send your kids to college? Because that's what we do here. We send everybody to college. How many of you are planning to send your kids to college so that they can then go and build these houses? So the reality is that so long as we live in a capitalist society, there's always going to be someone or a group of people that will do work that some of the rest of y'all don't want to do. These are the people that are really making us great in this country.
He says deporting them is often separating families. It's sending people back to countries they aren't even familiar with. What's your response to him?
Well, I have great respect for the congressman. What he has said would be interesting if it were true. Illegal immigration is illegal. Duh. If you don't like the law, change it. But you have to follow the law. The American people support legal immigration, but they don't support illegal immigration. They see the border like they see their front door. Most Americans lock their front door at night. They don't lock their front door because they hate everybody on the outside. They lock their front door because they love the people on the inside, and they want to know who's coming in and out of their home. The congressman and his party allowed 8 to 12 million people to come into our country illegally, and we don't have the slightest idea who they are. That's like adding 4 Nebraskas. If they would be, they believe in open borders. I mean, that's clear to me. Nobody is so incompetent as to allow that many people to come into our country. It has to be intentional, and the Democrats would be a lot more intellectually honest if they would just admit that they believe in open borders.
Shadows, if they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked, they're gone. If they've been working and are law-abiding, we should say, here are the conditions for you staying. You have to pay a stiff fine because you came here illegally. You have to pay back taxes, and you have to try to learn English, and you have to wait in line.
Let's start with the news on PBS and NPR. You posted that they have a right to publish their biased coverage, but not at taxpayer expense.
Yes. I mean, unless you've been living in your parents' basement playing video games, you know that in the last decade or so, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and its cousins, PBS and NPR, have become very, very left of center, in many cases almost woke, in their reporting. That's their right. The First Amendment provides for that. The problem is that the American taxpayers give them $500 million a year to do that. So at least half, and I think probably 60 to 75% of Americans are paying these select few TV stations and radio stations to publish not the news, just their ideology. Again, under the First Amendment, they're entitled to do that, but they're not entitled to do it with taxpayer money. We're trying to save money. I say, and I've been saying for a while, let's just take the money away from them. They can do it on their own if they want to. And President Trump is sending us a bill when we get back after Easter. Happy Easter, by the way. After Easter to strip the funding. And I think it's long overdue. If you're a Democrat in today's Democratic Party, you're not allowed to fire bad employees, to fire bad teachers. You're not allowed to cut wasteful spending. You're not allowed to deport illegal immigrants.
When you've heard the news this afternoon, a couple hours ago, what did you think?
Well, I think rulings like this, and I think we've seen from the FDA and also from activity in Congress, that some of these rulings, I think we've been preparing and anticipating for there being these egregious overreaches by members of the judiciary appointed by a right-wing Republican Party whose goal for a very long time was to just pack these courts with partisan judges, often underqualified or completely unqualified for their role. And so there has been thought, I believe, given to this. Senator Ron Wyden has already issued statements, for example, advising what we should do in a situation like this, which I concur, which is that I believe that the Biden administration should ignore this ruling. I think that the courts have the legitimacy and they rely on the legitimacy of their rulings. And what they are currently doing is engaged in an unprecedented and dramatic erosion of the legitimacy of the courts. It is the justices themselves, through the deeply partisan and unfounded nature of these rulings, that are undermining their own enforcement.
So you're saying the Biden administration should ignore this court, but what does that look like? What does that actually mean?
I think the interesting thing when it comes to a ruling is that it relies on enforcement. And it is up to the Biden administration to choose whether or not to enforce such a ruling.
I say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. Because
You're not allowed to oppose MS-13. You're not allowed to like cops. You're not allowed to prosecute thieves who steal less than $950. You're not allowed to question vaccines. You're not allowed to oppose sex change operations for minors or transgender people in women's bathrooms or playing women's sports. You're not allowed to oppose critical race theory in our schools. You're not allowed to oppose reading porn to grade schoolers. You're not allowed to oppose racial quotas. But you are required to use certain pronouns and to believe that men can breastfeed.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about a man who cuts through the noise with the precision of a patriot's blade. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. This is a man who tells no lies. His words are a beacon of truth in a swamp of deceit. And when he speaks about America and our government, you better believe he's speaking from the heart of what makes this nation great. Kennedy doesn't mince words. He doesn't pander to the politically correct or bow to the woke mob. He tells it like it is. And for those of us who love this country, red, white, and blue, through and through, that's exactly what we need. John Kennedy's message is clear. America is the greatest nation on God's green earth, built on freedom, hard work, and the rule of law. He warns us that our government has been hijacked by bureaucrats and elites who think they know better than you and me. He calls out the corruption, the waste, and the policies that put illegal immigrants and criminals ahead of hardworking American families. When Kennedy says the government's spending is out of control, he's not just whistling Dixie. He's pointing to the trillions in debt piling up while Democrats push for more handouts to their pet projects. When he says our borders are a sieve, he's speaking for every American who's tired of seeing our sovereignty trampled while the left cries compassion for lawbreakers. His words aren't just true, they're a battle cry for those of us who want our country back. Now, let's talk about the other side, the left, the Democrats, folks like AOC and their taxpayer-funded mouthpiece PBS, and they've lost their ways so bad it's almost comical. And almost comical. These people have turned their party into a circus of woke nonsense where thieves, criminals, and the mentally unhinged are practically put on a pedestal. AOC will scream about equity while shoplifters run wild in blue cities, and PBS will churn out sob stories about systemic injustice with your tax dollars, ignoring the victims of crime left in the wake. It's ridiculous and it's hypocritical. They'll lecture you about tolerance while canceling anyone who dares disagree with their rainbow-colored dogma, and they'll cry, defund the police, but hide behind private security when the chaos that they've unleashed comes knocking at their door. This isn't the party of JFK anymore. It's a woke wasteland that glorifies lawlessness and calls it progress. The hypocrisy is staggering. Democrats claim to champion the working class, but their policies crush small businesses with regulations and taxes while they cozy up to big tech and Wall Street. They'll tell you that you're there for diversity, but try being a conservative in their echo chamber and you'll be shunned faster than you can say MAGA. And don't get me started on their obsession with identity politics. While Kennedy's out there fighting for every American, the left is slicing us up into victim groups, pitting us against one another to keep their power. And it's not just wrong, it's un-American. John Kennedy sees through this charade and he's not afraid to call it out. He knows the real threat isn't just bad policy, it's an ideology that's abandoned reason, accountability, and patriotism. The woke left wants to tear down everything that makes America strong, our history, our values, our borders, our safety. But Kennedy's truth is our shield. He reminds us that we don't have to bow to the mob. We can stand tall, demand law and order, secure our borders, and put America first. Because that's what a government of the people, by the people, and for the people is supposed to do. So, my fellow patriots, let's rally behind men like John Kennedy. Let's reject the woke insanity of AOC, PBS, and their ilk. Let's take back our country from the hypocrites who've forgotten what America stands for. Kennedy's words aren't just true. They're a roadmap to making America great again. And if that sounds like something worth fighting for, then let's get to work.
Now, I don't think I'm being unfair. This is what Democrats and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez now believe. And a charitable interpretation for this kind of behavior does not exist. And the American people look at it and they just want to jump out of a moving car. And that's why Democrats are polling right up there with scalp psoriasis.